Imagine trusting someone with your heart, your dreams, your future, only to watch it all burn in the flames of betrayal. What would you do if the person you loved wasn't who they claimed to be? This is the story of Claire Emerson, a woman who lost everything but refused to be broken. It's a tale of deception, heartbreak, and the relentless pursuit of justice. But beware, not all truths are easy to face, and sometimes redemption comes with a cost. Claire Bennett sat on the edge of her modest, sunlit kitchen, her fingers lightly brushing over the warm wood of the table. She cradled a steaming cup of tea between her palms, the warmth grounding her in a moment that otherwise felt untethered from reality. Outside, the autumn leaves tumbled through the air, a cascade of fiery colors whispering of change. She had always preferred simplicity, a life free from the trappings of her family's wealth and the cold, calculated society she had fled years ago. There was no hint of extravagance in the small home she'd carved out for herself. It was a place where she could lose herself in the selfless joy of her work at the community shelter, offering solace to those whose struggles mirrored her own past. Here, her heart found purpose. Here, her secrets were safe. The only indulgence she had allowed herself was Ethan Carter. Ethan had swept into her life like a summer storm, full of laughter and charm, a dreamer with eyes that held both mischief and an endless ocean of promise. A bartender by night, he had ambitions of building his own business, a tech startup that would revolutionize data security. Claire had believed in him when no one else did. She had been the quiet wind beneath his wings, offering encouragement, resources, and, when times grew hard, financial support. A truth she had never revealed to him. In him, she had found not just love but a kindred spirit. He didn't care who she was or what her family name represented. Or so she thought. A soft kick in her belly pulled her back into the present. Her hand instinctively moved to her growing bump, her heart swelling with a mix of wonder and vulnerability. Their child, hers and Ethan's, was a secret she had carried alone for 3 months. It had been her intention to tell him after the gala. She squeezed her eyes shut against the onslaught of memory. That night had begun with such hope. She had walked into the grand ballroom dressed in midnight blue, her hand trembling with anticipation as she smoothed the fabric of her gown. She had imagined Ethan's face lighting up when she shared her news. Instead, she had found him standing beneath a cascade of chandeliers, his arm wrapped around Olivia Sinclair, his ex-girlfriend, the one who had once left him heartbroken. Claire had frozen, the world narrowing into a blur of glittering lights and shattering illusions. Olivia's hand rested possessively on Ethan's chest, her laughter a soft, intimate melody that only lovers share. And then Claire had noticed the curve of Olivia's belly, the unmistakable swell of life within her. Her stomach had twisted, nausea rising like a tidal wave. It wasn't just the betrayal of another woman, it was the timing. Olivia was as pregnant as she was. Ethan had turned, his gaze locking onto Claire's. His eyes, those eyes she had trusted more than anything, had darkened with something unnameable, guilt, fear, and something else she couldn't quite decipher. She had fled before he could reach her, her heels echoing against marble as she stumbled into the cold night air. Now, sitting in her small kitchen, the memories cut as fresh as they had that night. She hadn't spoken to Ethan since. The calls she hadn't answered had ceased after a week. He hadn't come looking for her, and she hadn't gone seeking him. Why? That question haunted her. Why had he left? Why had he betrayed her trust? And why, after all they had shared, hadn't he fought for her? A single tear traced down her cheek. She brushed it away angrily. She had faced far worse in her life than a broken heart. Her childhood had been a battle for survival, a gilded cage with poison-tipped bars. Her family's empire was built on power, wealth, and lies. things she had rejected when she had chosen to disappear. She had given up her name, her inheritance, her legacy, for freedom. And now she had someone far more precious to protect. Her fingers curled into a fist as resolve hardened in her chest. She couldn't let herself drown in sorrow. If Ethan Carter had made his choice, then she would make hers. She reached for her phone and dialed a number she hadn't used in years. "Marcus," she whispered when the line connected. The voice on the other end was smooth, sharp as a blade. "Claire, it's been a long time. I need your help." There was a pause, heavy with unspoken history. "Tell me everything." As she spoke, the pain began to weave itself into purpose, because this wasn't just about a broken heart. It wasn't about betrayal. It was about finding the truth, and if there was one thing Claire Bennett knew, it was how to rise from the ashes of deception stronger than before. A week passed, but for Claire, time moved like a slow, agonizing drip, each second carrying the weight of unanswered questions and festering pain. Sleep came in fractured pieces, and when it did, her dreams were haunted by Ethan's face, his betrayal a relentless echo that followed her into waking hours. She found solace in work. The shelter buzzed with activity as the cold months set in, and Claire threw herself into organizing donations, making warm meals, and helping with housing applications. The people she served gave her purpose. But even the smiles of the children couldn't fill the hollow ache in her heart. The only person who knew her secret was Marcus. He arrived in the quiet hours of the morning, when most of the world still slept. He moved with the fluid grace of a man accustomed to shadows, tall, lean, and sharp-eyed, a trusted friend from a life Claire had long left behind. Dressed in a dark, tailored coat, his presence filled her small kitchen with the scent of rain and danger. Claire poured him a cup of black coffee, her hand steady despite the storm inside her. "Did you find him?" Marcus took a slow sip, his gaze never leaving hers. "Yes," the single word sliced through the silence, sharp as glass. Her breath caught. "And?" "He's not who you think he is." The words hit her like a physical blow. Her heart stuttered. "What do you mean?" Marcus placed a thick folder on the table. It landed with a dull thud, heavy with secrets. "Ethan Carter doesn't exist." The room seemed to tilt. Claire's pulse thundered in her ears as she stared at the folder, as though it might bite her. She reached for it slowly, her fingers trembling as she flicked it open. Inside were photographs, documents, and pages of information that unraveled the truth of the man she had loved. "His real name is Alex Mason," Marcus continued, his voice low and even. "He's a con artist, a good one. He's been working with Olivia Sinclair for years, partners in a long string of cons, targeting wealthy families and vulnerable women. Their usual game is to gain trust, siphon resources, and vanish without a trace. You weren't the first, Claire. You were just the biggest prize." Her vision blurred as she scanned the files, records of fake businesses, offshore accounts, and staged relationships. There was even a picture of Ethan, no, Alex, with Olivia, their smiles triumphant as they toasted to a victory. Every memory she had of him shattered into jagged pieces. The warmth in his eyes when he looked at her, the late-night confessions, the plans for the future, all of it had been a lie. A cold, bitter laugh escaped her lips, a sound foreign and sharp. "I was a mark," she whispered. "You were a challenge," Marcus corrected gently. "He targeted you because you walked away from your family's fortune. You were supposed to be untouchable. That's why he went to such lengths." Her stomach churned. She pressed a hand against it protectively, as though shielding her unborn child from the ugliness of the truth. "And Olivia, pregnant," Marcus confirmed, his jaw tightening. "But whether it's his or just part of another ploy, I don't know." Claire swallowed back the bile rising in her throat. Her heart felt like a fragile, broken thing, held together by sheer will. She wanted to hate Ethan Alex with every fiber of her being. She wanted to erase every trace of him from her memory, but her love had been real, and now there was a child. What do I do now? She asked, her voice cracking. You fight, Marcus said without hesitation. You're stronger than they are. They think they've won, but they don't know you. Her eyes flicked up to meet his. Strength flickered in her chest, a small but fierce ember. They'll regret this, she said, her voice a whisper of steel. For the first time in days, she felt something other than despair. Days passed, and the bitterness in Claire's heart hardened into resolve. The pain of betrayal no longer paralyzed her, it sharpened her mind, steeled her focus, and became the fuel for a dangerous game she never wanted to play, but had no choice but to master. She could crumble beneath the weight of deception, or rise to reclaim her life. She chose to rise. The world of wealth and power that Claire had long abandoned was now her weapon. Sitting in her dimly lit office at the shelter, she drafted a plan with meticulous care. The very inheritance she had shunned would be the key to striking back. She made calls to trusted legal advisors, reconnecting with people from her past who still respected the unwavering integrity of her father's daughter. One by one, she fortified her defenses. The first move was regaining control of her trust fund, a task Ethan or Alex had unknowingly set in motion. His attempt to entangle her finances had alerted Claire to hidden vulnerabilities. With her family's lawyers reinstating her as the primary authority over her assets, she shut every backdoor he might have left open. But securing her finances wasn't enough. She needed information leverage. Late one night, Claire sat alone in her small living room, the glow of her laptop casting shadows on the walls. She combed through Marcus's files on Alex Mason and Olivia Sinclair, tracing the network of deceit they had built. Olivia was the chameleon, slipping effortlessly between personas, spinning elaborate tales that melted the hearts and wallets of their victims. Her beauty was a trap, her wit a blade. Claire's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Every detail she uncovered tightened the knot in her chest. She read stories of women who had fallen prey to the same scheme, women who had trusted, loved, and been left with nothing. A surge of righteous anger burned in her veins. She would not be another silent casualty. Claire picked up her phone and dialed Marcus's number. He answered on the first ring. You ready to move? Yes, she said, her voice firm. But I won't just go after him. I want Olivia, too. Every lie they told, every penny they stole, I want it all exposed. Marcus chuckled, a dark sound laced with admiration. That's the Claire I remember. I've been tracking their movements. Alex is laying low, probably thinks you're too broken to fight back. But Olivia, she's bold. She's hosting a charity gala next week. It's the perfect stage. A slow smile spread across Claire's face. Then let's give her a show she never forget. The night of the gala arrived with a storm, the rain pounding against the pavement as Claire stepped out of the sleek black car Marcus had arranged. She wore a dress that whispered elegance, a deep emerald green that clung to her figure and shimmered like the sea under moonlight. Her hair was swept back in soft waves, her lips painted a daring crimson. She looked every inch the heiress she had once been, but her eyes burned with purpose. The grand ballroom glittered with opulence. Crystal chandeliers cast prisms of light over marble floors, and the air hummed with the low murmur of conversation and the clink of champagne glasses. Claire moved through the crowd with practiced grace, her posture regal, her gaze sharp. She spotted Olivia near the stage, her laughter ringing out like a bell. Draped in silver silk, Olivia was radiant, her smile dazzling as she charmed a circle of wealthy benefactors. But Claire saw beyond the facade, saw the calculating gleam in her eyes, the subtle manipulation in her touch. Claire, Olivia's voice rose above the crowd as she spotted her. What a surprise, it's been too long. Claire's smile was cool. Indeed, it has, they embraced, a delicate dance of social pretense. Olivia's arms were warm, but her heart was ice. I heard about your unfortunate situation, Olivia said, her tone dripping with false sympathy. I can't imagine what you've been through. Ethan was such a dear. His loss must be unbearable. Claire's eyes didn't waver. Yes, it was quite a loss. But some things have a way of resurfacing. Olivia's smile faltered. A flicker of unease passed over her face, but she recovered quickly. I do hope you're finding peace. Oh, I am, Claire said softly, her words a dagger wrapped in silk. In fact, I'm starting a new initiative to help victims of fraud and deception. People who've been manipulated by those they trusted most. It's a cause very close to my heart. The tension between them crackled. Claire's gaze held Olivia's, unflinching, unrelenting. Excuse me, Claire said, stepping away before Olivia could respond. She crossed the room, her heart pounding with the thrill of confrontation. At the edge of the ballroom, Marcus waited. Phase 1. He asked. Complete, Claire whispered, her eyes gleaming with fire. The weeks following Claire's reappearance at Olivia Sinclair's gala rippled with the force of a storm she had unleashed. Whispers of intrigue filled the circles of the elite, and secrets long buried began to surface. Her resolve to bring Alex Mason and Olivia Sinclair to justice had become a mission far greater than herself. It was about every person they had deceived, every life they had torn apart. But justice was never simple, and it demanded more than patience. It demanded a reckoning. Claire sat alone in her office one evening, her fingers tracing the edges of a manila folder Marcus had delivered earlier that day. Inside was the final piece of evidence, a series of wire transfers, coded emails, and signed documents tying Alex and Olivia to their web of deceit. She felt the weight of it in her hands, not just the paper, but the lives behind each transaction, the trust shattered with every dollar stolen. Her mind drifted to the night Ethan, or Alex, had first walked into her life. The warmth in his smile, the easy charm, the way he made her believe that love could be simple and real. She had given him her heart, her dreams, her future, believing that he was her sanctuary, and he had burned it all to the ground. Tears welled in her eyes, but she did not let them fall. She was past mourning. Now was the time to strike. The courthouse steps loomed before her like a mountain she had climbed in 1,000 nightmares. Cameras flashed as she ascended, reporters shouting questions that cut through the cold morning air. Claire Emerson, do you have a statement about the charges filed today? Are you seeking personal compensation from Alex Mason? How does it feel to be the woman who brought down the most elusive con artist of the decade? Her heels clicked against the pavement, each step measured, her chin lifted with quiet dignity. Marcus flanked her side, a stoic sentinel shielding her from the media frenzy. She paused at the top of the stairs, her eyes scanning the sea of microphones and expectant faces. She took a breath. My name is Claire Emerson, she began, her voice steady and clear, and I am here not just as a victim, but as a voice for those who have been silenced. This is not about one man's crimes or one woman's pain. It's about justice for every person who trusted and was betrayed, for every dream that was stolen. The crowd quieted, her words cutting through the noise. To those who believe they are untouchable, she continued, her gaze fierce, know this, truth always rises. Lies may deceive, but they will not endure. And to anyone who has suffered as I have, remember there is strength in survival, and there is power in truth. She turned without waiting for questions, her heart pounding as she stepped inside the courthouse. The courtroom was silent save for the shuffling of papers and the low murmur of legal counsel conferring. Claire sat at the plaintiff's table, her hands folded neatly, her posture a study in calm resilience. Across the room, Alex Mason, no longer the polished charmer, but a man reduced to desperation, avoided her gaze. Olivia Sinclair sat beside him, her mask of composure cracking at the edges. The woman who had once been untouchable now looked as though the weight of her own sins was finally bearing down upon her. Claire felt no triumph in their downfall, only a cold, resolute sense of justice. The proceedings stretched long into the afternoon. Evidence was presented, witnesses testified, and slowly, the web of lies and fraud unraveled before the court. When her moment came to take the stand, Claire rose with purpose. She spoke of trust and betrayal, of hope turned to ashes, and of the scars left behind. Her voice did not waver, even as emotion pressed against her chest like a flood threatening to break free. She laid bare her pain not for pity, but to illuminate the truth. When she finished, the room was silent. Even the judge, a stern man with a furrowed brow, seemed moved. That night, the stars shone cold and clear above the city. Claire stood on her balcony, the chill air biting against her skin. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply, the weight of the day heavy on her shoulders. Victory, she had learned, did not always come with the sweet taste of triumph. It was often bitter, tainted by the cost, marked by the memories of what had been lost along the way. But it was still victory. Her phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with Marcus's name. "It's done," he said when she answered. "They're guilty on all counts. Restitution orders are in place. They'll be behind bars for a long time." Claire nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. "Thank you, Marcus, for everything," he chuckled softly. "Don't thank me, Claire. You did this, you fought, and you won. Remember that." As the line went silent, she felt the truth of his words settle within her. She had reclaimed her life, her strength, and her future. Tomorrow would bring a new dawn, and she would face it with the courage of a woman who had walked through fire and emerged whole.